Do people respond to your emails in the way you want them to? Or do they seem to ignore them or miss important information? And are you sure that you're making the best possible impression with your emails? When you compose an email message, there are some simple rules that you can follow to ensure that your emails make a positive impression and get you the response you want. In today's session, we're going to learn how to write a proper email by following some simple steps. Let's get started. 1. Do have an informative subject line. Email subject lines are like newspaper headlines. Therefore, you should be as specific as possible. One word such as hi, question, or FYI are not informative and don't give the reader an idea of how important your message is. If your message is time sensitive, you might want to include a date in your subject line. For example, marketing meeting scheduled for Thursday, December 2nd. A good and informative subject line is about 5 words, but no more than 7. 2. Do include a formal greeting salutation. It's always a good idea to start your email with a salutation. We'll discuss 3 good practices to follow. The first practice is to, when in doubt, address someone more formally to avoid offending them. For example, Dear Professor Smith, or Hello Ms. McMahon, or even Hi Mary. If you don't know the name of the person you are addressing, or if the email addresses a diverse group, try something generic yet polite, such as To whom it may concern, or Dear members of the selection committee, or Hello everyone. The second good practice is to stay away from using Sir or Mr. unless absolutely certain that your correspondent is a male. And when it comes to addressing females, it is safer to use Ms. rather than Miss or Mrs. In certain settings, such as academia and healthcare, doctor should be used rather than gender-specific salutations. The third good practice is to be careful to regard cultural differences. For example, in the United States, you can usually get away with a first name, but Germans are quite formal. 3. Do write separate emails or separate paragraphs for multiple topics you need to address. Miscommunication can occur if an email is disorganized or just too long and complex for readers to easily follow. Here are 3 easy steps to create clear and organized emails. First, briefly state your purpose for writing the email in the very beginning of your message. Second, use paragraphs to separate thoughts, or consider writing separate emails if you have many unrelated points or questions. After each paragraph, add a line of white space by clicking Enter 2 times to visually separate paragraphs into separate blocks of text. And third, use bullets to note important details so that they are easy to pick out. 4. Write with formal spelling, grammar, and punctuation. Email communications are a reflection of who you are, and emails with excessive spelling and grammar errors may come across as you being lazy, uncaring about your image, and unprofessional. Here are 3 key tips for maximizing your email writing. First, avoid using text message abbreviations, especially for a professional context. Second, avoid using multiple punctuation marks, such as 2 or 3 exclamation points, or a combination of multiple exclamation points and question marks. Lastly, reread messages before you send them to demonstrate that you've put time and thoughtfulness into your email. Always check for proper grammar, spelling, capitalization, and punctuation. 5. Do write with a proper tone. Tone is a difficult thing to explain. It is easy to change your tone when you're speaking. However, when you're writing, it's very hard to do. Your email tone should come across as respectful, friendly, and approachable, not curt or demanding. Here are a few tips to ensure you write with a proper tone. First, you should always avoid language that could be perceived as blaming. Instead of saying, "You didn't post my exam score," think about writing, I'm having trouble locating my exam score. Second, if you're writing to someone you've communicated with before, you might want to begin by saying, "I hope you are well." This starts the email off right, demonstrating concern for your email recipient. And third, while some people regard email as a rapid and informal form of communication, others view email as simply a more convenient way to transmit a formal letter. Such people may consider an informal email rude or unprofessional. 6. Do provide context when asking or responding to questions. It's important that you add context to your email content when asking or responding to questions. Why? Well, because not doing so can lead to reader confusion. Here are 2 good tips to add context to your emails. First, if you're asking a question, cut and paste any relevant text into the email so that the reader has some frame of reference for your question. And second, when replying to someone else's questions, it can often be helpful to either include or restate the sender's message. It is not a good idea to simply respond with a one-word answer such as yes or no. Additionally, if the questions are too complicated to answer by email, then request a face-to-face meeting or phone call with the sender. 7. Do not attach unnecessary files. You should send attachments only when absolutely necessary. Otherwise, it demonstrates a lack of courtesy to those you are emailing. When sending attachments, you should consider the following issues. First, know your receiver and consider whether it is okay to send a file. Then, if you must send a file, only attach files in a format that you know the other side has the software to view. 8. Do not use bold, red text, or caps. Generally, bold, red text, and caps should be avoided. The reader may be unable to accurately detect which parts of the message are especially important, and thus may be confused as to what you want him or her to do with your email. You should only use boldface type or capital letters to highlight critical information, such as due dates. In summary, it is better to simply avoid using bold, caps, or red text, rather than to risk the negative consequences. 9. Do not use emoticons in business communications. Although the use of emoticons such as smiley faces has the potential to make the emotional meaning of an email clearer, the reality is that these symbols are not well accepted in business communication. This means emoticons have the potential to reflect poorly on the sender. Besides, have you ever sent a smiley face only to realize it was received as the letter J or some weird symbol? Emoticons can produce another layer of confusion. They don't always read the same way across different technical interfaces. Therefore, it is not a good idea to use emoticons to express yourself when sending emails, especially when communicating with anyone other than your close friends and family, such as business professionals, work colleagues, or professors. It is always important to be professional. 10. Do include a closing statement and email signature. Your closing is extremely important because it lets the reader know who is contacting them. There are 2 parts to the closing: your closing statement and your email signature. First, let's discuss your closing statement. Prior to signing your name, you should include a brief but friendly closing statement. Some common examples include "Thank you," "Best wishes," "See you tomorrow," and "Regards." For a very formal message, such as for a job application, use the kind of closing that you might see in a business letter, such as "Sincerely" or "Respectfully yours." Okay, so now let's discuss your email signature. Your email signature includes your name and any relevant identifying information. At a minimum, always sign off with your name at the end of your email. If you know the reader well, then your first name only is appropriate. If you don't know the reader well, you might consider not only including your first and last name, but also including your title and the organization you belong to. 11. Do not overuse the high priority and reply all features. There are two features in an email, in particular the high priority and the reply all features, that you should use sparingly and only when necessary. If you overuse the high priority option, it will lose its function when you really need it. Meaning, if you flag many of your emails as high priority, your readers will come to believe that that's just how you write emails, and not all of them are truly priorities. So, before you flag an email as high priority, ask yourself, is this truly urgent, or do I just prefer a quick response? Now let's discuss the reply all feature. When you reply all, it should be because every single person who received the original email needs your reply. This will eliminate receiving excessive, unnecessary emails to filter through. In most cases, replying to the sender alone is most appropriate. When you're in doubt as to whether or not to use the high priority or reply all function, your best option is to not use them at all. 12. Do use blind carbon copy, or BCC, when sending an email to many recipients who don't know each other. Blind copying emails to a group of people can be useful when you don't want everyone on the list to have each other's email addresses. The only recipient address that will be visible to all recipients is the one in the To field. You should use BCC when sending an email to many recipients who don't know each other, such as when you're sending mass distribution emails. Here's what you should do if you don't want any of the recipients to see the email addresses in the list. First, put your own address in the To field, then put everyone else's address in the BCC field. 13. Do not carbon copy or CC to e-tattle. E-tattling is the act of intentionally copying several people on an email. That should be meant for the recipient alone, in order to point out a mistake or wrongdoing. In business correspondence, the people copied are usually managers, supervisors, or clients. In an academic setting, the people copied are usually teammates and professors. This approach will most likely cause problems with ongoing relationships, teamwork efforts, cause embarrassment, and hurt feelings. E-tattling will do nothing but reflect negatively upon you and your ability to communicate in a professional manner. So how do you handle e-tattling at work? If you do not get the response you desire, then simply pick up the phone first or meet personally with the individual involved to resolve the issue. 14. Do you have a professional email address? While a cute or risque email address can seem clever among a group of friends, it can send the wrong message to admissions offices, hiring managers, potential colleagues or partners, and other business professionals you meet. When creating a professional email address, keep it simple and straightforward. Use variations of your first, middle, and last name. If you're really attached to your current address and don't want to change it, consider adding a second one for professional use only. And finally, 15. Do not use email for sensitive or confidential matters. You should know that email is never private. Any email, including those claiming to be private, is often compared to a postcard in that anyone who comes in contact with it can read it. It is important to keep in mind that your message could be forwarded on to other people without your knowledge. A backup copy of your email is always stored on a server where it can be easily retrieved by interested parties, even when you have deleted the message and think it is gone forever. Instead of putting sensitive information into an email, it is better to make contact either by phone or in person regarding your confidential matter. We hope you have learned that writing proper emails is an important and necessary skill to learn. The consequences of writing poorly written emails are always the same. That is, a poorly written email leaves an equally poor impression.